Hello, Harston, agus fescramaigh ule. Is Misha Ananich Gure, agus ha mi a shogus einsigh mu frosect a hoshi a chun codas davliene fan a romin am offerker lesichi a goper fiegna Gaeltoch and an Taighean-Tasgaidh eterjalichte. My name is Anna MacQuarrie, Nich Gure, if you want to use my surname in Gaelic, and I'm really pleased to be here to reflect on this project, which began in January 2023 and ended in March just past 2025. This was a partnership project between Gairloch Museum, West Highland Museum, Highland Museum of Childhood and Applecross Historical Society, and was a new undertaking for each of the partners to work together in a really new way. And for me personally, to move on from a curatorial role in the public sector to a developmental one in independent museums. Myself and my colleagues didn't all know each other before starting, so it's taken a lot of trust in each other to work together so closely for so long. The overarching aim for each museum was to do more with, for, about and through Gaelic. This meant supporting the curators to better understand where and how Gaelic language and culture was already present in their collections and work, and where existing strengths were within each organisation, with each museum being really different from the other. It also meant identifying where there were perhaps weaknesses or opportunities to reframe work and build in approaches which could be suitable for Gaelic audiences or tell a Gaelic story or Gaelic history. Much of the collections and archives held by each organisation show life when Gaelic was the primary language of that community, with Gaelic acting as a continuous spine throughout the interpretation of objects. Through that and sharing traditional Gaelic practices and engagement and outreach work, we enabled the telling of Gaelic histories previously overlooked or untold. Each museum also has had the opportunity to demonstrate Gaelic for what it is today, not just a language of past communities, but of everyday life relevant to whatever topic is being considered in the museum. The nature of this work is that I was basically trying to make myself obsolete, to leave my colleagues sufficiently informed and confident enough not to need external expertise around Gaelic from myself or from somebody in a similar position. With such a different range of levels of knowledge and experience of Gaelic, ranging from a fair amount to none whatsoever, it's been really inspiring to see how everyone involved in the process, my immediate colleagues and the wider teams at the museums, have embraced the process and become themselves excellent advocates for the place of Gaelic and heritage, as well as active learners in some instances, which is just a lovely added benefit. So what this work looked like in real terms was some of the following kind of strategic and practical outcomes, which is only just a tiny sample of what we achieved. And these photos are kind of just to have something to look at. They don't really relate to anything I'm saying all that specifically, unfortunately. Across each museum, we wrote policy and strategy planning documents to reflect the place of Gaelic within all aspects of museum business, whether collections, outreach, customer service, whatever it was. For some museums, we also worked on learning and engagement resource development for teachers, for pupils, for loan boxes like you can see from the Highland Museum of Childhood here at the bottom, but also feeding into wider initiatives like the Museum of the Highlands, where we were writing activity resources for young people as well. We set up steering groups, we went back to basics in some cases and delivered Gaelic awareness training for volunteers and staff, and championed where existing Gaelic speakers and supporters were already. We looked at current and future exhibitions and how Gaelic can be included meaningfully, because this is about so much more than just translating some text from English to Gaelic. It's meant developing Gaelic-led object labels and gallery interpretation, website content, creating local networks of Gaelic speakers and enthusiasts which might not have previously existed, and crucially plugging into the big, wide Gaelic ecosystem that already exists, but from which the museum might have been a little removed previously. Some examples of that included being a host venue for Common Gaelic kids' summer school activities that you can see in the top right picture here, working with Tópar an Dúlchais to host events, and connecting to educators at all levels of teaching, preschool, primary, secondary, college, university, and participating in initiatives like Seachtain na Gaelic. There has been a lot of talking in this job. Some of the best developments and ideas have come about through a blether over a cup of tea, some of which has been kind of an informal walk somewhere through the galleries or out in the local environment, or some of it has been a little more structured, like this picture in the middle at the top here, where we hosted a lunch for kind of a local Gaelic network in Gairloch. Taking the time to get to know people and build a bridge between me as a Gael and the museum as potentially an unknown figure to the Gaelic community has been essential. Building trust and demonstrating in meaningful terms how each museum is delivering for Gaelic and showing the Gaelic community that there is a place for them in this institution. It has not all been easy. One of the hardest bits is that there is still a lot of anti-Gaelic sentiment out there, even here in the Highlands where it is the defining culture of this place. It's often unconscious, it is sometimes unfortunately quite blatant, but there's also people who just stubbornly don't want to listen to give the work a chance. And what can you do in those instances? While I came across people who ticked all these boxes, this project has happily been overwhelmingly positive, if a tremendous amount of hard graft. It's required relearning and changing established processes and ways of working in every institution, and sometimes establishing brand new ways of working. It's required meticulous time management by me, balancing a second part-time job along with this one, but also having trust in my colleagues to keep their side of the project running too, with it being a partnership in the truest sense. The work was strategic and intended to be sustainable. With it being strategic, the idea was never that I would be delivering day-to-day events, although I did some of that, but rather giving the museum the tools by which to be able to continue the work themselves. In supporting museum staff and their volunteers, they developed their confidence as the people responsible for the care of their local Gaelic heritage and material culture. There's been extensive interest from colleagues in the museum and heritage sector, not least from when I spoke about this project as it was getting started in this room about 2 years ago to the day, but keen to know how they can do more for Gaelic in their work, as well as interest from Gaelic-specific organisations wanting to better understand how they can support museums, which is a lovely, lovely thing. Being able to act upon that interest and seeing that wider impact has been unexpected, but a very satisfying outcome to the project that we couldn't really have predicted. And these pictures again, just showing some of the people involved, people I've worked with, volunteers, staff members, community of interest there in the middle, and a lovely open display of tools from Gairloch Museum. The key to our success has been fairly simple. It has been to work willingly and work openly together as 5 colleagues in a team, four of whom you can see pictured here, one of whom is in the room, I know, and then others might be around tomorrow as well. For anybody who doesn't know, left to right, Vanessa, who's over at the back, sorry Vanessa, I put you on the spot, Marvin from Highland Museum of Childhood, Karina, who's the Gairloch Museum Curator, and Fiona from Applecross Historical Society. A willingness by my colleagues to take chances, be bold, and wrangle their volunteers and directors, sorry trustees, but often there's a lot of wrangling involved, has led to really meaningful progress and 4 museums who can share their experiences and learning with others. So a question that I asked 2 years ago here today was that if you're not currently reflecting Gaelic lives, perspectives, histories or culture in your museum at the moment, ask yourself why not. And secondly, speak to the folk here today that I've mentioned, or tomorrow, who now have a few years of this work under their belt and see what you can learn from them, although of course you could speak to me as well. This project has required confidence, conviction and political nous to deliver against ambitious aims, placing a minoritised language and culture at the heart of work being done, in some cases for the first time. It has been an active and hopeful demonstration of the value that exploring history and material culture through an Indigenous language can bring. As a native Gaelic speaker, being able to centre my own language and culture in my professional practice has been incredibly rewarding and an opportunity which remains far too rare in the museum sector. While my role has come to an end, happily, I know that this work is continuing by my 4 colleagues in lots of different ways, new projects, new initiatives, and in one case, a massive museum redevelopment where Gaelic is at its core, which is just amazing. Advocating and representing a language and culture should be supported and cherished by all of us working in heritage, which I think this project has really testified to. So I want to say thank you, first of all, this project was inevitably funded. Most of my funds came from Borna Gaelic, from a scheme called the Gaelic Development Officer Scheme, which during the time of this project was cut and then reinstated and then extended, and there has been quite a lot of turmoil around that and the impact of that with the grassroots Gaelic community. What a really positive turnaround has happened in the past month or two is that it has reopened with more money and for longer term projects, and is open right now until the first week of June. So if you want to have a Gaelic development officer in your museum, look at the scheme, because there are funds available there, which I think is, given what we were hearing earlier on, a very happy thing with how tight things are. It's not a museum-specific scheme, but they do support museums, as my own role is testament to. And Museums Gallery Scotland gave us top-up funding for helping deliver events as well. But special thanks have to go to my 4 colleagues that I mentioned. They're fantastic. How great to be able to work with people who are so willing to try and do something new. But I want to give special thanks to Karen Buchanan, who's over there, because when she was at Gairloch Museum, she's now at the Arctic Convoy Museum, it was her original idea which brought the whole project together, who got the partners involved and gave me the job. So thank you, Karen. That's it.